Wake your ass up
or take a damn nap.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
It's time.
Sean, you were twerking. That's gonna happen.
Murph, don't be a dick all your life.
It's one of the more fun podcasts I've ever done.
Hey, I tell you what, if you're not talking about sports in the man cave, I bet not say you not a man.
That's it.
Well, here we go. Episode 91. I'm glad to be back in the land of God's country, Austin, Texas. We 2 episodes in Razorback country. Fayetteville, Arkansas, fun, but the fans were not fun. Billy Schott, a Texas kicking legend, ATX original. Thank you for joining us, my friend.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm honored.
I look around, and for a backstory on Billy, he and his wife, lovely wife, Cindy, they frequent Key West quite often, and it looks as if you haven't left your home. I'm assuming that's either a resort or your home on the back porch, which looks like Key West.
It's a back porch of West Key West here in Cedar Park, America.
Well, first off, man, tell me a little bit about we're going to everything Texas, Arkansas, and the quarterback situation, but your quick synopsis, if you will, from your expert opinion from what you saw in Fayetteville, and we'll dive in deeper because, there's quite a story that involves you, the man that is Billy Schott.
Well, it was one of those things. Of course, everybody thinks that if you played for Texas, then you're automatically an expert on it, no matter what the area is or anything. So I had a bunch of people, calling me during the game and wanting to know, well, what's going on? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And all so that's when you just turn the phone off. But it was one of those things where if anything could go wrong, it did, and it was a really good wake-up call, I think, for the guys. And you don't like to have a wake-up call and then get an L over there in that column, but it happens, and hopefully it's like Coach Royal used to always tell us way back was that you take it, you move along, you learn from it, and you make the best of what you've learned and take that. Hopefully things will improve.
Now, before we get to the story, to tie in what you just said, that loss, that 40-21 loss to Arkansas, prompted this to happen on a quarterback change. And here's what first-year Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian had to say after naming Casey Thompson the starter for this week's game against Rice.
I don't know how long it's going to go, and that's part of it is unfortunate because you like to know exactly where you are, but part of it is I kind of like it because they're making it hard, and that should be the characteristic of our team at every position, that every week you just don't know because both guys are battling so hard. And so I appreciate that about both Casey and Hudson.
When you watch tape,
So we'll talk more about that. Casey Thompson and Hudson Card are rotating in and out. Last week, Hudson Card got the start. So that is a good convenience, and we'll definitely talk more about that in segment 2. Of course, those of you watching from other parts of the country, keep an eye on – you'll see Billy. He is the TV timeout official. He's the guy that stands on the field with a red – I think it's a red vest, right, or a red shirt. What is it? It's a shirt.
Red shirt, red cap, headset.
Red cap. Tell us a little bit about that, because that job looks easy, but it's far from it.
Well, the way I got started doing that gig was back the very first year of the Alamo Bowl, and I was living in San Antonio, the area down there, and had been working on, with the various professional teams down there. I was coaching with the Gunslingers and the USFL, and then the Riders we were a thing then whenever the Alamo Bowl started up. And I was going to be on the chain crew for that very first Alamo Bowl game. A guy from ESPN came into our chain crew locker room and said, hey, I need to get somebody to be a TV liaison. And so I was in with a whole bunch of the older heads in there and all, and they were like, well, what's that? And I said, well, okay, you'll be on a headset. As soon as he said headset, most of these guys just went, oh, hell no, no, too much responsibility. I don't want to do that, no. And I just kind of like, hey, I'll talk to you. So we went out in the hallway, and he said, well, let's go over to the truck. Went over to the production truck, and it looked like NASA in there. I mean, there's monitors all over the place. It's nice, and I mean, it's nice. Well, of course, it was kind of a chilly night anyway, but it was nice and cold in there. And I thought this is kind of a neat idea. So he told me what was expected, and went out and had fun doing it. And basically, what that job entails is that we have a set number of commercial breaks during the course of a game. Depending on the network platform, that dictates how many we'll have per quarter. Like, for example, tomorrow against Rice, it's on the Longhorn Network, which is part of the ABC ESPN family. So we'll have 3 breaks in the first quarter, 4 in the second, 3 in the third, 4 in the fourth. And they vary in length, like from 3:05 to the breaks in between quarters on their what they call expanded format is 3 minutes and 55 seconds. So you've got a lot of time to go pee. And so if you've been tailgating heavily before the game, give you at least 14 opportunities to go and stay hydrated and all. But it's as far as you say, it's kind of a lot of responsibility. Well, when you think about it in terms of the millions of dollars of TV revenue that these advertisers are pumping into these games, and you're partially responsible for making sure that those breaks get taken when they're supposed to be taken, then you say, this is a pretty big gig. I just wish that we got paid a little higher percentage of the of that revenue than we do. But it's fun. I mean, heck, they pay me to watch college football, and better yet, I get paid to watch my team play. So that's a pretty good deal.
No, that is really cool. That's like you pulled a Mac Brown right there. That's a neat deal.
What a neat deal.
What a neat deal. And that's all out of fun for our friend Mac Brown. But I've honestly had the opportunity of kind of working with you on the crew. 2 years ago, I got to be the guy who slaps the orange arrow down where I think the first down is. That's quite a workout. And, I'm always available if you want me to run up and down a sideline and slap an orange arrow on the field. That was quite an experience.
Well, we know who to call just in case. So.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now,
and he said you're high on the list of just in case.
I'm on standby alert,
yep.
Which means no tailgating that day in order to
it might
perform.
Be too late, after a while.
Of course, my last time out was with Les Miles and KU. That was an interesting experience in itself, standing next to Les Miles. And
he still blames you for losing his job, too.
He did. He had to have a scapegoat. Lost his job twice. The backstory here for Billy, not only a friend of mine, that's not the only reason he's inside the man cave today, but for those of you wondering why, what's his story? From Austin, played for the legendary Texas high school football high school football power, Reagan High School, which is now Northeast. Back in the day, you guys were competing for state championships almost every year. There's a lot of background story there, but I guess let the people know the story coming up here, growing up in Austin and playing for a power. And I think you were part of that mythical or that national championship team, correct? At Reagan?
At Reagan, I was on 2, actually. I was my freshman year, where I did not play on the varsity as a freshman, but we won the state championship that year in '67. Defeated Abilene Cooper, and the next year, my sophomore year, I got brought up to the varsity and competed as a sophomore. We were fortunate enough to go back and win state, and we were voted as a national champion that year. '69, we had what we thought would be a really, really strong team, but by the third game of the season, I think we had 14 starters out with injuries, and we finished 8-2. Well, back in those days, you had to win district in order to go to the playoffs, and we came in second. And nowadays, there are coaches that would lop off an appendage to be 8-2 in regular season, and all because they're going to go somewhere. So the two losses we had were district losses to Austin High and McCallum. And McCallum ended. We had a 35-game winning streak, and they ended that. And all. But then we kind of made a vow, those of us that were going to be seniors in the 1970 season, that we weren't going to let anything stop us. And we came back and we won state and again voted national champions in 1970. So 3 of the 4 years I was in Reagan, we won state titles, and that was something that was pretty awesome to be a part of. And the 2 years that I played in '68 and '70, we defeated Odessa Permian, another still storied program, and that was just quite an honor to be part of that and be able to look back. And the older we get, the better we were. So.
It's like a fish story. No, you really that's what placed Austin as far as on the map of high school football. Of course, Old Anderson High School had some phenomenal players before integration, and Reagan High School was a power for almost 4 decades, and it was a mainstay in the state rankings and always competed well. Now, back then, during that same time frame, Darrell Royal and the Texas Longhorns really built a machine, and you became a kicker at Texas. And if you want to see Billy, what he would look like as a kicker, there are some photos on our Twitter handle @StoriesManCave. And if you want to comment, ask Billy about what it was like back in the good old days, quote unquote. You kicked with the straight on. You don't see many kickers like that anymore. Why is that?
I don't think you see any, but I have in watching the state high school championships over the past few years. Every now and then you'll see a guy out there maybe kicking off. There was one of the small schools out of West Texas. I think they had a young man that kicked straight on, but I don't know. The soccer style of kicking became more in vogue, I guess, about probably the mid to late '70s, and as a result of that, whenever I was coaching special teams, things like that for various programs or professionally, I had to learn the little nuances about soccer style kicking, which I learned that no two soccer style kickers are the same. I mean, they hit the ball at a different spot on their foot. I mean, it's just there's little twerks they all do. So it's just kind of an acquired taste, I guess, as far as coaching it. And I have been able to work with a lot of really successful soccer style kickers and help them out. One of which was Tony Franklin. He used to kick for A&M, and he had called me up one time, and at the time I was working with the Houston Oilers then, and Tony called me, and he was having some issues, and he coerced me to come over to College Station, and he said he'd pay my gas, buy my beer, and find me a date. And he still owes me gas money. But anyway, he was something else to work with. But he always told me every time I run into him, he always thanks me for the help I gave him. And also, I guess, I learned a lot doing that. But it just started took over, and the mechanics of it are quite different from straight on kicking. But you kind of can almost liken it to a golf swing, really, in the way that the torque that's generated, things like that. So it's kind of a interesting science.
Yeah, it looks like it. Now, Billy, he mentioned he worked for the Houston Oilers, but you spent quite a few years coaching or playing professional football in San Antonio, Houston. You've been somewhat of a consultant and still a respected name. And are you okay with using the term legend at all when associated with your name?
I think in my case, it's more rumor. So, like a rumor in my own mind. So.
Now, the best part, and I would be remiss to not mention our sponsors, Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency and Cosmic Coffee and Beer Garden on the South Side. Great time always on the South Side. Paulo Vasey, an Austin original, one of the primary investors, is definitely a good time. And, of course, Jim Saxton. And he's the sponsor of our first segment, Man Cave Story. And I know you have plenty of those type of stories. If you didn't know, Billy is quite comical. Sarcasm is he has a degree in sarcasm and great jokes, great locker room talk. But what would be a man cave story that you love telling, or you could be multiple, maybe in relation to being a player for and getting to know and being a friend of the late great DKR, Darrell K. Royal?
Well, it's my favorite story concerning Coach Royal is one that I have used and was able to put this to good use on a couple of projects that I worked on. I was fortunate enough to be able to work on the TV series Friday Night Lights. I worked with Kyle Chandler on that, and my good friend Tim Crowley got me involved in it, and also with the movie My All American, and with Aaron Eckhart. And it revolves around, people have always asked me, what's the best halftime speech you ever heard from Coach Royal? And it's some people, they always assume that coaches are just real fire and brimstone, Newt Rockney, rah-rah types and all that, and win one for the Gipper type of thing. Coach Royal was really more effective by the few words that he used. And when we were playing SMU my junior year in '73 up in Dallas in the Cotton Bowl Stadium, and we had just come off of a really tough loss to Oklahoma a couple of weeks before, and then we beat Arkansas, came back, went back to Dallas. Now here's where you can tell the difference in how things were. And back then, the Oklahoma game was a non-conference game. Back then, we were the old Southwest Conference. They were in the Big 8. So we flew to Dallas to play OU, and then 2 weeks later we rode the bus to play SMU in a conference game to Dallas in the same stadium.
Oh my goodness!
You can see the priorities there. But anyway, we were down 14-0. We should have been just kicking their butts, and we were having a rough go. We had Roosevelt Leaks, was a great running back, dear friend, and he was having a rough time the first half. And here we are, highly favored in this game, down 14-0. SMU's cocky, and they're talking all kinds of smack. And so we go trudging up the ramp back up to the locker room at halftime, and Rosie is just kind of dragging along, and he's just like, man, I can't go, man. They're killing me, Schott. They're killing me. And all I said, man, you got it. Come on, we'll be all right. Let's go on up there. So he went in and just plopped down in a chair. And everybody in the locker room, we were kind of divided, offense on one end, defense on the other. And there was a lot of, back and forth between the two ends. And things kind of calmed down a little bit. And then Coach Royal came in, and it was a sort of standard procedure that when Coach came in the room and he stood up on the bench or a chair or whatever, that you just automatically ceased what you were doing and stopped talking and all and listened, because the man obviously had something to say. And so we all dropped to a knee, and he looked at us. He kind of smiled. It was kind of a weird deal, because by all rights, he should have just been pissed. I mean, because we were playing like piss. And so but he looks around and kind of smiles and he goes, "Well, men, there is one hell of a fight going on out there. Why don't y'all get in on it, Captain?" And he's got took the coaches out. Captains took over, and there were some chairs thrown and things like that. And so, long story short, second half, Roosevelt Leaks 358 yards rushing, which at that time set a new NCAA single game rushing record. I think he had about 50 at the half, maybe. And so he goes out and just goes nuts. And I remember one of the newspaper things says, "Roosevelt Leaks all over the field." And
genius.
He was in the Dallas papers or something. And then final score, SMU 14, Texas 42. So that was, by all means, that was just one of the most effective halftime talks I ever heard, because it was so simple and it made so much sense. And back to the Friday Night Lights thing and All-American, there were some times I look at the script and they had like Kyle Chandler comes to me and he says, "We've got this, I'm supposed to give this big deal and at halftime. This just seems like a lot of BS. I mean, would a high school coach in Texas really say all this?" And I look at it and I was going, no. And he says, "Well, what would I say?" And I said, "Well, Coach Royal could do a lot of speaking with just a look." And he goes, "Show me the look." So, and it was very simple. He could look at you and kind of nod and maybe give you a wink or a little smile, and you felt 1,000 feet tall. Or he could look at you with some disdain and just kind of shake his head and look down and walk away, and you all of a sudden just like 1 inch tall. And I said there was that, and then I told him that both he and Aaron Eckhart for the movie and they used it in both productions, and when it came out really neat, because at the times were just right for it in those two situations, and it came off. And I remember the script supervisor, the directors came over and they said, they went to Kyle and they said, "Where'd you come up with that?" Because in Friday Night Lights we had a real loose structure. I mean, it wasn't like a set script. And it was sort of an outline, and so they had some freedom. And they said, "Man, where'd you come up with that?" And Kyle just pointed at me and said, "That guy." And "Oh, what's this guy?" And he just like he's an equipment guy and an official and all that. And said, "Yeah, well, he played it, coached it, played for University of Texas, like that." And said he knows his stuff. And so they thanked me for that. And then the same thing on set with Angelo Pizzo. Said, "Hey, that was a great addition to the script there, perfect spot for it." So that was a good Coach Royal story. But there was we had a few others, that, especially with the gunslingers, some hilarious things we encountered down there.
Yeah, it's I love hearing your stories, and those two right there are phenomenal in themselves, because if you watch the movie, if you go back and watch My All-American now, you'll look at it with a different perspective. Obviously, for the people who haven't seen it, the story about Freddie Steinmark in that '69 season, which is tremendous, and Friday Night Lights in itself, that was a great movie. And I had an opportunity to meet.
This was the series, Sean.
The show.
Yeah, yeah.
That. I forgot about that. You've told me that before. I need to be corrected sometimes. It's not the ADHD. I just forgot.
We were the Dillon Panthers and the East Dillon Lions.
Now that was filmed at Pflugerville, right? Some of it.
It started in Pflugerville, and then we moved over to Dillon.
Yeah, Dillon,
which is the old Del Valley Stadium and Field House is where we used. And we shot all over my old neighborhood in Northeast Austin and all. It was great.
That old Del Valley. Old Del Valley field for people who don't know, it's Del Valley's right there by the Austin Bergstrom International Airport. And my senior year in high school, we played Del Valley at that stadium. It was awful. It was not good. It was bleachers and pretty average. But hey, we didn't have the conveniences that these amazing facilities these high school players have here in Texas, because it's all true, bigger and better in Texas for high school football. It's absolutely insane. Billy Schott, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk about one of your favorite topics, Texas Longhorn football. We will hear from Casey Thompson, the now new starting quarterback for the Longhorns, and Saban's D's nuts jokes. It will be a topic. That is something I never thought we would talk about, but we are, and we actually have a certain soundbite that's coming up next. For all of your insurance needs, look no further than our primary sponsor, Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency. The ATX OG has been insuring Austin for over 3 decades. And get this, Jim Saxton is a Longhorn legacy. He is the son of the late, great James Saxton, who was a Heisman finalist. Be sure to give him a call, or better yet, visit his website, saxtoninsurance.com, and tell him that the stories inside the Man Cave Boys recommended you. Billy Schott, I thought that's all I could handle. That was my own phone video from Fayetteville. Your thoughts on when Arkansas fans decided to rush the field? Now, it's not truly objective. It's all a point of view. I was shocked by it. I didn't understand it. What did you think when you saw that? Because that I can only count one time I've seen that in Austin.
Well, when you're not used to winning a lot, that happens, and it's we're their Super Bowl, so I wasn't surprised. When the outcome was inevitable towards the end there, and you figured, well, we don't have a 20-point play here at the end. I was pretty sure they were going to pull that, and so I wasn't shocked. It happens. I mean, I think there are some schools that are really proficient at doing that because the wins come so infrequently. But for Arkansas to beat Texas, that's a big deal for them. Yeah. And all. And but it's kind of like our baseball team has always had a slogan, basically, you don't dogpile until Omaha. And every time I'm watching the regional tournaments around the country and all, and I see these guys out there dogpiling, and of course, at some point they're going to have a pitcher blow an ACL at the bottom of the pile or something like that. But you take a little more pride and you say, well, our guys won't do that until they win at Omaha, and because that's the ultimate. And so to me, something to celebrate. You always want to celebrate a win, but it'll come back and bite you if you don't do it with the right timing.
No, I agree. Do you think, pertaining to the football team, that Texas is experiencing, will there be an Arkansas hangover? I know they're playing Rice, but do you think Sark and that staff and that group of players and what's inside of them will not allow something like that to happen again, what happened in Fayetteville?
Well, I hope not, but the thing that I really like about Coach Sarkisian is that he doesn't pull any punches. I think that he's very genuine. Everything that I've heard from him, and when I've spoken to him in person and all, he seems like he means what he says. He's very he's factual, and the things he said this week, I know a lot of people say, oh, well, he says the right things, he says what we want to hear. Well, that could be true, but I believe that they will be motivated. I think there's a group of guys that have been there long enough that haven't tasted consistent success, and they want that. And I think they'll work for it. There's younger guys that want to come in and make their mark. And I think Rice may not be the barometer that you can measure it by. I mean, I think more like next week is what we're going to see. But this week, if they can eliminate mistakes and play very efficient football, I think that's going to carry over from week to week, and that's what you want.
And I thought, Texas gave up 333 yards of rushing, and I thought a lot of that not taken away from the Arkansas offensive line, which is pretty good. I mean, they're big, physical. I just thought the defense was on the field for far too long. Hudson Card, to his defense, the Texas offensive line didn't help his cause, but I think Hudson, it's one of those lessons that a young quarterback or at any position, it's one of those moments of adversity that you face and you say, wow, this is a big time atmosphere. We're in the premier conference playing a premier SEC in the SEC, a team like Arkansas in a hostile environment. Is that what you saw? Because I don't see this defense giving up yardage like that again, especially on the ground.
Yeah, I'm hoping that was an anomaly because as we heard that, the defensive front was supposed to be one of our strong suits from all the hype from training camp and everything else, and based on what we saw from last year. But I would imagine they'll reach down and they'll get it together. And I know some of those guys on there, like Keandre Coburn and all, I know they've got a lot of pride, and they're going to help themselves and help each other. And if they don't get it done, there's young guys that are just champing at the bit to get in there. So hopefully they'll get things righted, and I hope they learned by their misfortune this past week.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I have, and I still think, even though you hope to expect Texas to take control of this game against Rice. Arkansas struggled with them before Texas, but with a new quarterback that he's been around here a while, Casey Thompson, the son of former OU great Wishbone quarterback Charles Thompson. I had a chance when I was in OKC to see. I never really met Casey while I was up there, but all his brothers and his father, just a good family and very talented. But Casey, a very cerebral guy he's been here 3 years, sat behind, waited his turn, had that great Alamo Bowl win. Well, this is how he found out, and his mindset when he found out he would be the starting quarterback for the first time, his first start, I believe since 2017, while he was playing high school football in the Sooner State, Oklahoma.
And I woke up on Sunday. I focused on my recovery and focused on my body. Then I woke up on Monday and focused on practice, and I came in the building, and Coach Stark told me that I was going to be named starter. And I'm like, oh, wow, well, there it is. So that's really how it happened. Like I said, I can't really worry about the future. I'm just focused on today, and that's the approach that I really try to take with this whole process.
Kind of taking it one day at a time. He knows what to say, and he doesn't elaborate much. But what's your impression of him? Because he's been a guy that could have transferred and didn't, and he's waited his turn.
Well, I think the thing that impresses me up front about Casey is his maturity in the way that he has handled the situation, and in preparing himself. I was there working the Alamo Bowl, and I was as shocked as everybody when we looked up there and we see there's been a quarterback change. And I remarked I was talking to the associate director in the truck. I said, Casey Thompson's at quarterback for Texas. And he's like, who? And I said, Ellinger's out. Well, nobody knew at that time exactly what had transpired. And So I said, yeah, Casey, something must have happened with Sam. And so then they dispatched people trying to find out what's going on. Well, then they found when Sam came out with his arm in a sling and street clothes and all, but Casey just went in there and I was watching his body language, and it wasn't like he was, like the hyper little pup, jumping up and down and yipping and everything. He was just real mature and smooth, handled it like a pro. I mean, like he'd been doing this all season long, and I liked that. And then going in, I know everybody had already projected him to be the guy this year, and then Hudson had a really impressive camp, and I know this had to be one of the hardest things for Sark to make that decision. But I just had a feeling that at some point, I didn't want it to be by injury to Hudson. Nobody wants that, but I just had a feeling that Casey would get his opportunity. Yeah. And hopefully, it's going to bear fruit this week.
Yeah, Hudson, if he chooses to stay at Texas, he will have an opportunity to live out the dream that he wants to be as a starter. And I always thought he needs to be on the field in some capacity as either receiver, slot. He's just a great athlete, smart kid, humble. And one of his former high school teammates and Dicker the kicker, just a great overall guy, just a good kid, a great punter. I mean, great kicker, and he's having to punt this year because the punter is injured. I sound like Tom Herman, the punter. What
they have
names. And he had, it was just like you said, everything that could go wrong against Arkansas did. And Dicker having to punt, and he just had a bobbled snap, and it just poured on the momentum against Texas, and Arkansas capitalized on it. Sarkisian was asked about that, and is that something that really anybody needs to harp on, worry about moving forward, since Dicker the kicker is playing both roles as a kicker and a punter?
It's a human error. I mean, those things happen. It wasn't that he blocked a wrong person or things that happened. He dropped the ball. That happens. If I threw a ball to every one of you, I guess in this group, half you would drop it. I mean, that's the way it goes. So that's a human error. But
and even that's at the media address, and he's talking about if he threw a ball to all the people in the media, about half of them would probably drop it. Do you believe that half the media at the press conference wouldn't be able to catch it?
I think so. He's very generous, and he's evaluated that room pretty well, and I think he's probably got a good read on it. But he was very generous.
I have faith in Ed Clements. I think he could two-hand a catch if he was throwing a pass by Sark.
Well, I mean, you got to use two hands.
Hey, don't try to showboat and snag it one hand. But if your hand touches it, and I think it still applies, if your hand touches the ball, you have to catch it, right? Is that
now,
still?
Bob Ballou can one-hand it behind his back. This we know. So.
Yeah, Bob Ballou, he's deceptively athletic. There is a video of him when playing in high school up at he may kill me for this. I think it's J.J. Pierce High School in Richardson, dunking in a varsity game.
No doubt.
Bob Ballou has ups.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to know that. It's he's a good athlete. But yeah, your read on Bob Ballou is fairly accurate because he can do many things with the football. Now, Nick Saban, Billy Schott, the former Texas kicking great and the pride of the old Reagan High School. Is Nick Saban to you just rigid, or what do you know a little bit more about him? Surely he has a good sense of humor.
Oh yeah, I have many friends that have either worked with or around him and over the years, and they say that he's, his public persona is much different than what you see behind closed doors and in the locker room and in the meeting room and all. And he can be silly and cut up when he needs to, but he also can, he has the timing for it. And yeah, he's known to be silly. I know there's an episode of Eli's Places coming up that features Nick, and you can already tell him he's very dry. And some of the stuff he does. So, but sometimes it looks like a lack of patience with the media.
Yeah.
And also, I'm really curious to see. I mean, if they win this week and he's in a decent mood after the game, I'm just curious to see if anything comes up about these nuts.
And Billy Schott is a D's nuts jokes kind of guy, and that's a good segue. Jordan Battle, defensive back at Alabama, was asked about Nick Saban, the legendary coach, if you will, of the Alabama Crimson Tide, about if Coach Saban and his joking. And this is Jordan Battle earlier this week. It's pretty funny.
He always talking about touch D's or suck on D's or all that.
The laughing in the background is what got me. Touch these, suck on these. Can you even imagine Nick Saban saying that at practice?
Yeah, that's he's pretty subtle on some of that stuff, but that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. His usually what is on Monday, and they'll have it on the Paul Feinbaum show or something, and here's got his Coke bottle set up there, and he's usually pretty in a real dour mood, really, about win or lose, like, well, we played a good half, but that's it, and we'll just go crap another player and all those lines. So I'm just real curious to see if some reporter gets real bold and say, hey, how about these?
How about now your good friend.
We had to deal with when I was with the San Antonio Riders, we had Mike Riley was our coach.
Yeah.
He was a pretty low key guy, and so this is back in the early 90s. Well, that was going around then.
These nuts jokes?
Oh, yeah. And so our players would do things. Well, it turns out Mike's wife's name is Dee. So go figure what happens there. And they got him to do this in a meeting one time, and they said, hey, Mike, is your wife crazy? He said, oh, Dee's nuts. The whole place went nuts. Dee's nuts.
Now, a lot of people don't know, and there's a picture or two also on Twitter. One of your good friends, because of your annual trek pilgrimage to Key West, you become really good friends with the Mike Leach and the pirate himself. Very smart, intellectual guy. Was the guy who built Texas Tech, and they have not been the same since. And he's now at Mississippi State. Is Mike Leach a D's nuts type of guy?
And not that he doesn't appreciate it, but he's more into, like, okay, the origin of these nuts and where this came from and the historical significance. What Native American tribe potentially started this phenomena, back in the 1880s, and so it would be something along those lines. Or maybe there was Blackbeard the pirate, on one of his forays into the Caribbean. Well, maybe he's over there and he's talking about, oh, yo, and he's yelling at another ship and like, hey, you can either surrender the booty or these nuts, So he would be thinking that way,
What's your best Mike Leach impersonation from maybe one of your conversations with him in Key West?
Oh, geez. There's so many, and most of them were, between 2 and 5 in the morning or something like that. But this on our last trip down there before football season started up, training camp, we were down there over at another friend's house. He's got a good buddy that was a huge Washington State booster, and they're still just great friends. And so we were all out together, and we were in this big 6-seater golf cart. And again, it's like 2:30 in the morning, and so there's Mike and his wife Sharon, and Wade and his wife, and Cindy and I, and we're just riding around in Key West 2:30 in the morning. Well, somehow the subject came up about where we were staying, and we stayed at a friend's cottage over near the Key West Cemetery. And I was telling him, I said, this cottage almost backs up into the cemetery itself. I mean, I said, there's a grave not 3 feet outside of the bathroom there in the back.
Oh my God.
And it's Private Campbell. Private Campbell protects us, and also we always go around the fence and make sure his area is all cleaned off. But anyway, that night we're driving around. Well, then Mike starts telling a story about, he goes, well, there's this tombstone over there. There's a tombstone, and it's over, it's pretty close to this fence over. I think we can see it. And it's this guy. He was a doctor down here, and he was married to this gal, and she died. Well, I think this doctor was like into bondage or something, because he had this statue of her, and she's like this with her hands behind her back and all. It's kind of a weird deal, but it's right over here by this fence. So we're out there at 2:30 in the morning with the golf cart lights shining on Coach Leach as he's walking around with his red Solo cup, and he's going, I think it's right over here. Well, here, turn the lights over here. So we turn the cards. No, it's down this way. And so he's just walking around, and this couple comes riding by on their bicycles, and they look over and said, wow, here this guy's dying to get in. That's why they put a fence up, and he's like, well, you know about this doctor that had this. So he's going off. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there, and I Googled up, I said, bondage statue in Key West Cemetery, and I found it. And so everybody's, well, how'd you find that so fast? Everybody's like, hey, Mike, here it is. I said, I found it on the Google machine. And he's like, well, I guess it's not right here. But, that's just stuff that he likes to, he just likes to find something historical,
Right.
And usually hysterical by the end of the night.
He's a well-read individual of historical value, and
he writes good books too.
Swing Your Sword. That's the one I started to read.
That one, and
I've not finished it.
Wrote the book about Geronimo. That's really fascinating.
I'm going to go to Amazon and try to swing that my direction, so to speak. Well, this is where, because we love positivity, this is where we end the segment on something positive going on in your life.
Hey, man, tell me something good.
Dramatic. We're very dramatic. The voice right there is the son of the Mike Hards, DJ Hards. Great. Tell me something good right there. Brother Sure Shot, if you will. I don't think I've ever called you that, but you're a brother, so to speak. Tell me something good.
Well, woke up on this side of the dirt. That's good. And had it's blessing, I guess you might say. It's a blessed day, and it's always good to be able to talk with you, whether it be late night on the phone or after ball games, things like that. But I guess the good thing is it's football season, and that's always, it's like in my life, I have 2 seasons. I have football and summer. And so sometimes they overlap a bit, but if it's the way I look at when they say, well, it's like the shortest day of the year in January. No, that means that the next day is the start of summer.
Yeah.
So that's always something good for me. And have a margarita or two, and it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. It is always 5:00 at the Schott household, where it's Margaritaville, That's Margaritaville West on your patio, and that is something good. I'll tell you something good. I am about to this evening. I'm headed to the oldest town in Texas, Nacogdoches, to see my alma mater, the Lumberjacks, play tackle football. I hope to see Colby Carthel, the head coach, take his shirt off, as he did last year after a dramatic win in overtime against Abilene Christian. But what is good is I am at a point now in my life where I'm able to go to all these football games on the road. And I can't do it every weekend, but it has been a blessing to be able to get up and go. And it's because it's like you. It's a fun part of life that I didn't able to get to experience all those years in the mainstream media. And it is fun to go. And you as you know, on these trips, you start meeting people and it becomes like your football family, so to speak. That's something good on my side.
Very good.
Very good. So you can relate to that, though. It is a football family, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's probably for most people that like us that you generally get excited, as it gets closer and closer, and it goes by so fast. I mean, it just, next thing you know, you look up and we're talking about the high school playoffs and championship games. And then, I'm a Who Dad. I'm a big Saints fan. So looking forward to their new beginnings down there. And they got a good start this last week.
Yeah.
With Green Bay. So
defense looks really good in NOLA. And that's I got a few of their guys on my fantasy league. And I can't wait to see what they do. So, Billy, short shots. Go on to @Stories Man Cave. Check out his photos. He's always a good storyteller, a lot of fun, and a good friend. We appreciate you joining us for episode 91 of Stories Inside the Man Cave.
Well, thank you for having me. Like I said, I'm very honored, and some of the stories I have are true. So.
Yeah. They're not all elaborated or fabricated. That's legitimate Billy Schott. And if you don't believe me, check out those photos. It's the flat-toed shoe. That is legendary in itself. For Big Mike, Coach Mo, and Hardball Harge, and the kicking legend from the great state of Texas, who has his horns up, Billy Schott. We out.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car, giddy up.